Just as China was breaking out onto the global stage, Mark Rowswell was breaking out onto the Chinese stage.
女士们、先生们，请用热烈的掌声欢迎我！没有主持人，没有主持人。尊敬的各位来宾、各位朋友，大家下午好。
I started studying Chinese in university, at the University of Toronto, and really just out of a sense of wanderlust. I mean, I just wanted to go to university and learn something, you know, study everything, right? And I wanted to learn more about the world, and I wanted to learn especially about a culture that was different than mine. 4 years later, I just thought I should go to China and do 6 months or a year of immersion, and within 2-3 months of arriving in China, because I already had that foundation, I was already sort of functional in Chinese.
听不出来了，我是大山。
Chance opportunity to appear on television. Next thing you know, 550 million people watching that one show. It's basically the Ed Sullivan days of Chinese TV, so boom.
哦，明白了。
Next thing I know, I'm on TV and everyone in the streets recognizes me as Dashan. But that was really just the first chance kind of, you know, splash that led to a lot of different opportunities.
One of those opportunities, meeting Jiang Qin, the country's most famous comedian at the time.
Got to know him and really became interested in this comedic dialogue as a way of sort of improving my language studies. So I was really focused on, you know, I loved his stuff and I was learning the skits and everything.
我翻译。
The second show was me performing with the #1 comedian of the day and performing this traditional comedic dialogue called xiangsheng, which is considered kind of linguistic acrobatics. And it's very much a straight man, funny man kind of dialogue, like Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello, that kind of vaudevillian kind of comedy, but it's revered as an art form in China. And that was a sort of a mind blower. People knew me as Dashan, this foreigner who spoke like fluent Chinese, but wow, and all of a sudden we took it to another level.
44，十是十，14是14，40是40。谁要把14说成14，就打谁14；谁要把40说成40，就打谁40。
And as part of that show, Jiang Kun formally took me under his wing, so to speak, as a pupil. Now, you're always learning from senior performers, but for a mentor to formally accept you as a pupil is a different kind of relationship. It's much more like a father-son kind of relationship. And I was the very first foreigner to be accepted through a formal ceremony as a pupil of xiangsheng rather than simply as a student.
Dashan's mastery of xiangsheng further elevated his celebrity in China.
I think xiangsheng has the reputation of being beyond the ability of most native speakers of Chinese. So that was the real mind blower. Not only is this guy speaking Chinese, but now he's doing something even I can't do as a native Chinese speaker.
说的是，在那1953年美帝的和谈阴谋被揭穿，这也不好。
He's like a symbol, really. Like a person who connects Canada and China. And to be honest, his Chinese is excellent. It's like the best I've ever seen, really. And then his performance in that field is also very unique. You have never seen a second person like him.
6万人次。
是啊，今天我
I mean, I have to speak Chinese to do what I'm doing. But just the fact that I speak Chinese is not enough to explain what is the appeal of the character. And I think it goes much deeper in the sense that it's not so much a linguistic or a comedic phenomenon as a cultural phenomenon. It's a sense of, you know, China, the last 30, 40 years has really been opening to the international world, re-engaging with the international community after a period of isolation. Western media tends to focus on the fact that you're a white guy speaking Chinese. I think what I get more from the Chinese media coverage is the idea that, you know, as China, we're a very ancient and complex and misunderstood society and culture. And we're globalizing, we're joining the international system, but at the same time, it's very problematic, right? There's a really strong sense that people resent China, misunderstand China, will always be misunderstood. There's this huge push and pull of wanting to join, wanting to be more global, be more cosmopolitan, but also a really strong sense of wanting to preserve our traditional culture and language as one of the great cultures of the world. And so in the middle of that sort of conflicting emotion, you have this Westerner who comes from the modern industrialized West, but is traveling in the opposite direction. He's learning Chinese language, he's learning Chinese culture, and I think Dashan is sort of a foil to that too, where it sort of presents the idea that, you know, maybe it's not impossible for Westerners to understand us. Maybe there is hope. There is that sort of middle ground. You know, I always use that saying that I think it was in the People's Daily, an article I thought summarized it really well. In Chinese, 他是外国人，但不是外人. He's a foreigner, but not an outsider. He's kind of one of us, but yeah, he's a Westerner.
Thank you so much.
I think one of the things that I found, just as a Westerner studying Chinese and then going to live in China, I think at first what really attracts you to a culture is that sense of difference. Wow, different exotic foods and performing arts that are just sort of mind-blowing and everything. But when you actually immerse yourself in that culture, I think what really impresses you much more deeply is that the human experience behind those cultural expressions are universal. We express ourselves differently through language, through culture, through arts and everything, but the human experience is the same.
Dashan's career could be described as a happy accident, and his name actually comes from a joke.
The name Dashan itself was a bit of a joke from the first skit, and that's why it stuck. It comes from a popular slang term at the time that was sort of this really new popular slang called Kat Dashan. It's a very sort of lowbrow kind of name.
都想看看电视上熟悉的大山，对不对？看到真人不适应啊，甚至是不敢认呢。那是大山吗？这确实长得有点像啊，不过。
I was working on the Olympics in Beijing in 2008, and I was in the opening ceremonies because I was on Team Canada as kind of a cultural attaché. And Matt Lauer interviewed me, and I thought, this is my breakout moment, right? But Matt, you know, he didn't know any of the background. He just asked me, like, you know, I hear you're really famous. How famous are you, right? And how do you answer a question like that?
这知名度也没有一个科学的指数是吧？我算3.8级。 没有到6.2级，我不知道啊，这没有什么指数啊。
A couple of days later, it was the closing ceremonies of the Beijing Olympics, and I remember seeing Yao Ming walking around, and he was being hounded by, you know, everyone there was an athlete, all of these Olympic athletes, but they all wanted their picture with Yao Ming. So I thought, I'd really like a picture with Yao Ming too, but I won't go there. Funny thing is, a couple minutes later, somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and I looked around, and there's Yao Ming, like way up there. And he's got a camera in his hand, and he looks at me and says, "Could I have a picture with you?" And I thought, wait a sec, now I gotta go back and find Matt Lauer. How famous am I in China? Well, have you ever heard of Yao Ming? Yeah, well, let me tell you, when Yao Ming meets me, he asks for my photo, buddy.
Dashan, the unlikely celebrity, has enjoyed a career that spanned 3 decades. Now, he's using his platform to find humor that bridges East and West.
I honestly moved away from comedy for a good 15 years in the middle of my career because I kind of thought, you know, that's great. I did that and I enjoyed it, and it was a window into Chinese culture and helped me practice my Chinese and everything. But I didn't come to China to be a comedian, right? I came to do stuff. And I worked much more as a TV host, educational programs, cultural festivals and everything. And I spent a lot of time trying to convince people that I wasn't a comedian. And it's really the last couple of years I've sort of moved back to comedy because I realized of all the stuff I've done over my career, it's really the comedy that touches people. You know, it's been a bit of an exploration the last couple of years, but now I've got a 60-minute show and I've been touring around China and Chinese communities around the world, and it's very Chinese in the sense that the rhythm is much like xiangsheng, and it's storytelling based. It's not one-liners, but it's more like stand-up in the fact that it's personal stories. I'm not telling historical anecdotes, I'm not doing tongue twisters, I'm not doing linguistic tricks. I'm telling stories about what happened to me and my view of this crazy world.
说到我们这一代呢，给大家介绍啊，这种命中注定的意思。为什么呢？这我2个兄弟啊，我们兄弟3个，我排老2。右边是我的哥哥啊，英文名字叫 Daniel， 但是一般生活中我们简称就叫 Dan。这中间是我的弟弟叫 Benjamin 啊，但是生活中一般简称就叫 Ben。这听明白了吧？我真的没夸张，这个没有演绎。我有2个兄弟，一个叫笨，一个叫蛋。 我叫 Mark， 我英文名字叫 Mark， 其实 Mark Bendan 这不太般配是吧？我都快24了，上电视一个看似偶然的机会，扮演了一个叫许大山的角色，从此起了一个艺名叫大山。24年以后，我们兄弟3个才终于成了大笨蛋，是不是有缘分呢
A large part of the audience that I'm dealing with, we're all in this mishmash of Eastern and Western culture mixed together, and we're all trying to find the balance. And I think that's the thing from my experience. Even though I'm coming from this direction, you're coming from that direction, we're meeting in this sort of middle, mush in the middle, and trying to figure it out. And that's really the root of the comedy that I'm doing, especially now.
非常开心，非常感谢大家，我们待会儿再见，谢谢大家。